Guys, as I promised in the last video, I am back again super soon with another video, and this one is going to be about Indian thrillers, the thrillers that I read and they impressed me in 2021. Now I did read my fair share of foreign thrillers as well, but I think when it comes to Indian thrillers, the characters, the settings and everything else is just so relatable. And like I told you, I did read my fair share of foreign thrillers as well, but most of those thrillers were psychological ones. Also, a lot of them I picked up on Storytel app, and a few that were not on Storytel app and I picked them up elsewhere. These are very expensive. The imported editions are very expensive. Sometimes they're around 800 or 900 or even 1100 rupees. So comparing those thrillers to Indian ones, I think Indian thrillers are much more affordable, much more beginner friendly, much more regular reader friendly, and also they are very relatable. So this video is solely dedicated to Indian thrillers, and in Indian thrillers also, this is a very niche genre again. This video talks about detective fiction or crime fiction. And so all the books that are featured in this video are going to be crime fiction, murder mysteries, and now because I have 4 books to talk to you about, let's begin. Book number 1 on the list is this one, Murderum, The Probe Begins by Dr. Sohail Makwana. I hope that a lot of you would have seen this doctor's photo that went viral during the second wave of the pandemic. So there was this photo that made huge rounds all over the internet of a doctor in a pale cream kind of shirt, drenched completely in sweat after a tiring COVID shift. If you haven't seen that photo, I will put it somewhere here so you can have a look and you will understand what I'm talking about. Now, what many people don't know is that that doctor is also responsible, is also the creator of this beautiful, not exactly beautiful, but this thrilling book, Murderum, The Probe Begins by Dr. Sohail Makwana. Now, this book tells us the story of this girl called Komal Rathod. Komal Rathod, who is hardworking, who's diligent, who's very smart and intelligent, and she's a forensic expert. Now, it is her dream to get into CBI, and when she lands up an opportunity to work as an intern with the CBI, she is given the task to study all the cases that have gone cold in the past decade or so. And while she is doing that, she discovers there is a connection between a lot of these cases, connection which everybody seemed to have missed, and this she relates to a serial killer who has killed recently and is on the lookout for his next victim. Now this serial killer is carnally obsessed with pregnant women. He kills them in the most abhorrent and violent and disgusting manner, and while he is doing so, he also leaves 2 dots on their bellies. So this is the story of that serial killer. This is part 1 of the book, and part 2 has recently released. I'm yet to read it, but I'm really looking forward to reading it. Now, what I like about this book is that there's a lot of forensic science which has gone into the making of this book. So while you're reading it, you would understand that there is a lot of research. So you get so much information. It's like an overload of information, but not in a really bad way, in a good decent way. And what I also like is that there are twists at the end of every couple of pages, and out of all the books that feature on this list, like all the 4 books, this is the only book which has a female protagonist. So Komal Rathod is the only female protagonist, and once you get to know her, you will be like completely bowled over by her. And also there is this ailment that she suffers from, a physical condition, which makes it impossible for her to feel pain. Now you would think that this is a boon, but trust me, when you read this book, you would understand what a life-threatening curse that can be. So all these unique things make this book very special, and I would certainly recommend it to all Indian mystery thrillers, people who love reading crime fiction, reading detective thrillers, and people who love reading about serial killers as well. So this is one book you should definitely check out. The book number 2 that I have on this list reminded me of Sherlock Holmes. Why, I'll tell you. Because the main character in this book, private investigator Rudradeep Ray, reminds you of Sherlock Holmes, is molded in the image of Sherlock Holmes, and his associate Sujit will remind you of Dr. Watson. But this is a very Indianized version, and this will also give you a lot of vintage vibes. Why, I'll tell you. Number 1, because this book is set in the Calcutta of the 1970s. So it has all that vintage vibe and vintage feel about it. Also, it's set during a very chaotic time when the entire state was grappling with the Naxalbari movement. And number 2, the way the book is written is very prim and proper and very gentlemanly. So it will definitely remind you of one of those classic thrillers which used to be written like way back then. Like it'll remind you of the good old days. Now this book, The Dead Don't Talk by Sumit Ghoshal, is basically a closed door mystery. So the crime happens behind closed doors, and now one has to figure out like what happened, who did the murder, and everybody is under the radar. Now this one is about the Ganguly family who live in this palatial bungalow in Calcutta. My bad, completely my bad. Now, the Gangulis are a family of three generations. All of the generations live together under a single roof, and then they have this aunt who's who's very talented, who's very hardworking, but at the same time, she's a little obnoxious and not really liked by everybody because of her fault-finding ways and her dominating nature. And it is this aunt who ends up dead, who ends up being murdered behind closed doors. And when the investigations take place, everybody is under the radar, everybody is found to have some motive or some secrets that they are keeping, and it falls upon private investigator Rudradeep Ray's shoulders to uncover the crime. So this again will remind you of like classic, very traditional and vintage kind of thrillers. And yeah, this book number 2 is The Dead Don't Talk by Sumit Khosrow. Now, book number 3 is also a similar book in the sense that it is also a kind of vintage mystery and thriller, a vintage crime thriller. It will take you like back in time and back to the days before technology took over and it became very easy to solve crimes. Now, in this book too, there's a central character who would remind you of the classic 90s Bollywood hero. So this guy is called Ajay Shaktawat, police inspector Ajay Shaktawat, and he goes ahead and solves all these crimes. And this is one of the crimes that he's solving. So this one takes you to the Bombay of the late 1990s. So it's exactly 1998, and there is this retired deputy police commissioner who gets murdered, like brutally murdered, after being tortured. And he's not the only one who's murdered. There is another acquaintance of his who gets murdered. Now there's all kind of ruckus in the media, and everybody's shocked. After all, who would dare to kill a police officer? Now it falls on Ajay Shaktawat's shoulder to unsolve this crime, and while he's doing so, while he's trying to figure out what happened, he discovers that it has linked to a decade-old case and also a case of a huge amount of smuggled gold from Dubai that went missing like a long time back. Now, what I like about this book is that one, it has a very vintage vibe. It reminds you of the Bombay of 1990s, and for somebody who doesn't know how it was, it will give you that atmospheric vibe, which is always a pleasure to read about. Another thing that I like is that not just on the crime front, this also has a lot of family drama as well. So Ajay Shaktawat is shown as a complete man. You see all the sides of his personality, and that's something really good. Finally, guys, the fourth book in this list is this one, Dead Air by Biju C. James. Now, this is a book that is not exactly a detective thriller, like there's no detective here who figures out who is doing all these murders and who killed who, but there is this investigative journalist who does that and he solves the crime. Now, one thing that I would say about this book is that this book again has a lot of things. So it's not just a murder mystery or a crime thriller. It uncovers some really ugly nexus and ugly connections between business. It's a book about greed, about human decadence, and there's so much more to this book than just a mere crime thriller. And I would not recommend this book to underage readers because there's a lot of content. Even for that matter, murder also you should not read. Like if you're underage reader, you should not read it because there's a lot of content that is not suitable for you. So I would certainly advise readers discretion. Now there is this gorgeous supermodel Tanya Khanna, who's the pride of Bangalore. She's drop dead gorgeous and she lives in a high-rise apartment in a very posh society full of security cameras and all kind of security arrangement that one can hope for. But she's found murdered in her apartment, and the thing is that there is blood and gore all over the place. But even then, there is absolutely no DNA evidence. Nobody can find out anything. Now, there is another guy called Vikram Shetty. Now, Vikram Shetty is an investigative journalist whose career was like at the peak a while ago. But due to some personal reason, it's now on a downward spiral. Now, Vikram is asked to cover the story by his editor, and he does that. But he faces the same kind of challenges that the police is facing. Why? Because there's absolutely no DNA evidence to the crime. Now, when he goes about solving, he discovers a lot of things. And this is a book which combines like money, technology, and it tells you that in the wrong hands, technology is capable of doing so much harm that you cannot possibly imagine. And again, what I like about this book is that there is a lot of drama, there's adventure, action, mystery, and twists and turns at frequent intervals. And I really, really loved reading this book. So guys, these are the 4 books that I would recommend to you if you're looking for Indian crime thriller or Indian detective fiction. 3 of these books I have with me right now, and one is a book that I've given to a friend of mine. So I did read a physical copy, but it's not with me right now to show you. But anyhow, I've put the picture, so that works, right? Also guys, if you have any Indian crime fiction recommendation for me, Indian detective fiction, Indian murder mystery recommendation for me, do let me know in the comments below and I'll be very, very happy to check them out. And thank you so much for watching this video again. I will see you with another video super soon. Until then, take care, stay safe, and I wish you again a very happy new year. I really hope that you're making the most of this year. Let this be the year that you change yourself for the better. Let this be the year that you look back on and are proud of yourself for all the work that you have done in this year. So let 2022 be that year for you. And I will see you with another video super soon. Until then, bye.